All right, everybody, welcome back. This is Grow Sports Talks, episode 5, our new podcast, still trying to get underway here. Today, we are lucky enough to have ex-NFL quarterback and Husky legend Hugh Millen join us on the show today to talk some football and some current and past NFL trends and topics today. A quick rundown, if you guys aren't already familiar with Mr. Millen himself, went to UW, where he was a Husky legend there, and he led them in 84 to an 11-1 record, where then next year he finished up his senior season before getting drafted to the Rams, where he started his pro football career there. And then he stayed in the NFC, where he went to Atlanta, and then he finished up his career with 2 seasons each, traveling to the AFC to finish it up in New England and in Denver. And thank you so much again, Hugh, for joining us. Really do appreciate this. And I'll kick it over to Blake now to start off with some questions we have for you.
You bet, Evan.
All righty. Well, thanks again, Hugh. We'll start it off with an easy one here on April 1st. Who is your favorite son? No, we won't get to. We'll just leave that as an April Fool's joke here.
Yeah, I got a favorite dog, but I don't have a favorite son.
There we go. We'll take that answer right there.
Diesel's my favorite dog. How about that?
That's a great answer. All righty. So, all jokes aside, what was the most enjoyable part of your career, whether it was the high school level, college level, or the NFL?
Well, I think playing in college for the Huskies, we spent about a month ranked number 1 my junior year. To be that part of that kind of excellence, playing for a coach in Don James, who is in the College Hall of Fame, one of the legends in Seattle sports history, and a real regimented, disciplined type guy. I think being part of a structure like that was probably the most memorable, and we ended up finishing number 2 in the final polls back then. Some of you young guys don't really remember it, or it's almost difficult to comprehend, but college football at that time was the lone sport in all of America where the champion was determined subjectively by a vote.
Oh, wow.
The sports writers, in one case, one poll, and then the coaches in the other, and every other sport you can name determines an objective champion on the field, including all other levels of college football, Division II, NAIA, and what have you. But it was Division I football where the sports writers, you just wake up the morning after the bowls and you're at their mercy. And we finished, I believe the vote was 1160 to 1140. So we lost by 20 points. It was the closest vote in the history of the AP. So we were that close from winning a national championship, and so there was a lot of good memories associated with that, and a little bit of a bitter pill and a scab that still gets picked when I think about how close we were to winning the national championship.
Yeah, for sure. That must have been tough. The fact you didn't even get a chance to play against, I believe it was BYU, who barely edged it out that year. When did that end? When they started a national championship where they did play against each other?
I want to say the BCS was the precursor to the college football playoff. I probably ought to know this, but I think somewhere around 96, 97, 98, somewhere in there. One game that I think I remember was when Virginia Tech played Florida State, and Virginia Tech had Michael Vick.
Mm.
That's one of the first games. That might have been the first. I could be wrong on that. Check me. But that was a game where I remember thinking, okay, they've actually changed the structure, and they're actually having one play 2. And I thought that was a step in the right direction. And then, of course, it's evolved since then. But back then, I mean, BYU, you referenced them. They didn't play nor obviously defeat. They didn't defeat a single team in the top 20 the entire year. In the whole history of college football, national champions over a century's worth, BYU's the only team that never won a game against a top 20 team. And so and people say, well, they went undefeated. And so we didn't. Washington went 11-1 and BYU was undefeated. But then I would turn around and say, well, what's the threshold? What if Montana State goes undefeated?
Yep.
What if Sacramento State goes undefeated? At one point, do you have a threshold where you say, well, that's not enough to go undefeated? You have to have had competition. You have to have faced competition. And so in an event, you can tell it still sits with me all these years later, 40 years
it
plus.
Would for us as well as non-collegiate players.
I think I'm going to take it to my grave, guys. I'm pretty sure about that.
No problem.
I haven't kicked it in 40 years. I don't think I'm going to kick it.
I was unaware it was they did not beat a team in the top 20. That would infuriate me. But off of that, like, as a non-football player, a Sacramento State or like a team playing nobodies, they should have no chance at winning the title, because I don't know if you remember UCF a few years ago, they were undefeated and everyone was saying they're national champs or whatever, but they didn't play anyone and they didn't even make the playoffs. So that just shows how much better SEC and Big Ten schools are nowadays.
Yeah, and I'd be willing to bet, sight unseen, I bet they had at least one win that year against a top 20 team.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and BYU, they played a Michigan team in the Holiday Bowl, a 6-6 Michigan team that Jim Harbaugh, you know that name.
Oh yeah.
Jim Harbaugh was the Wolverine quarterback for almost the entire year, but he was injured for the bowl game. So BYU got to play in the Holiday Bowl against a Michigan team without their starting quarterback, Harbaugh. Yep. So look, I'll take those thoughts with me forever.
For sure.
Now, to be fair, I think that if a BYU player, he should have a right to have played for the championship as well, and not have people question. All those guys are walking around with rings, national championship rings. 40 years later, depending on the circles they travel in, I'm sure if they're traveling with just BYU people, everybody just exalts them. But I think from time to time, they may get a raised eyebrow about, oh, you were the BYU team.
Yeah, for sure.
That is considered, a suspect national title winner for the reasons we've been discussing. I think from their perspective, they deserve the right to come on the field and beat Washington, and prove that they were. Now, we played them the next year. They beat us. Then the year after that, we beat them. So subsequent years to 84 don't matter, because I think we had 11 guys from our 84 team go to the NFL in some manner or shape. So the only thing that matters was the 84 team. But I imagine this. We've already probably talked too much about 1984. But anyway, that's what happens when you
we love to hear your thoughts.
An aging quarterback, you're going to get these type of stories.
No, yeah, like we said, we'd love hearing about this. Obviously, yeah, because we didn't, we weren't around when there was no, like, I couldn't even imagine now if there was just a vote for, through the coaches and everyone to decide who was the national championship without actually playing for it, which I feel like, gosh, yeah, that would also make me mad. But
can you imagine? Can you imagine an NFL season?
No, you see, yeah,
where you got to the end of the regular season, and then instead of having playoffs and a Super Bowl, imagine if the sports writers just voted at the end of the year.
Yeah. Oh,
maybe you had like one playoff game, like an exhibition. That would be the equivalent of a bowl. But you don't carry out any type of tournament, no Super Bowl, and then you just vote, and you have to accept the vote. So you say, well, guess who would have won the championship last year? The Chiefs would have won.
Yep.
right? If they were just voting, they say, well, the Chiefs are probably the best. And then they would write it down. And for the rest of history, the Kansas City Chiefs would be the NFL champions of 2024. That's what would have happened. Well, as young guys, you're sitting there going, well, that's absurd. That's preposterous.
Yeah.
Right?
It is.
I mean, that sounds as crazy as instead of playing 60 minutes of a college football game, let's play 58, and then we'll sit around and we'll vote, well, who would have won if we'd have played 2 more minutes?
Yeah, God.
These constructs are absurd. And yet that's exactly what my teammates and I lived and continue to feel the sting of it.
Was it like a March Madness type thing where the whole team's huddled around waiting for the votes to come in?
No, because they didn't have a public announcement like that. That's a good question, Blake. But the votes just kind of disseminated, and then they called our head coach Don James and they said, well, look, it was really close, but you didn't get it. And then he had to somehow get that information to us. And yeah, so it's just an entirely different way of structuring the whole enterprise of college football. And thankfully players and coaches and fans don't have to deal with that now.
Yeah. Well, that was a great first topic. I mean, it sucks that that's how it ended up, but it's great that they changed it. Of course, you didn't get the chance to live in the better, in my eyes. Yeah, for sure. But we'll hop over to this next question. A lot of our viewers sent the same one in. What is the bigger jump from high school to college, or from the college level to the NFL?
Well, I think they're both big jumps.
Mm-hmm.
For me, having played at Washington and played, against some of the, the best competition that college football has to offer, I would say it's a bigger jump from high school to college than it is from college to the NFL. Now, that's not to diminish the jump from college to the NFL. That's big. Yeah. But I think when you're playing the USCs and the Oklahomas of the world in college, big jump up. But I think high school to college, high school, we've had teams at Mount Si where we had, 180-pound center and 192-pound right tackle, and they did a serviceable job. I mean, we could function with that, and we could win with that, and that that's just preposterous. In college football, you got 300-pound linemen. In the NFL, you got 300-pound linemen. Now everybody's faster, more skilled at the NFL level, but I my opinion, the jump is bigger from high school to college.
I can only imagine. I mean, I was in high school playing, right guard at like 180 pounds, where that's like not even 100 pounds less than what college, or especially at those big schools like that. I look up to them and be like, holy shit. Like, I don't stand a chance, especially on the other side of the ball too, on defense. It's like, well, I love my quarterback, but I don't stand a chance against these guys.
Yeah. I think that I just look and say, okay, if a average NFL team played the best college team, you would have, and let's say the NFL team was incentivized to beat the college team, like financially incentivized to just play hard for 60 minutes. I think it'd be a big score. I think it would be, 70-7, 70-10.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had a college team play, who won the state title in Eastside Catholic in football?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Eastside Catholic.
So if you had let's say you had Purdue played Eastside Catholic, and Purdue was incentivized to win by as much as they could. I mean, they'd win 140 to nothing.
Yeah.
You know,
and Eastside Catholic still had some
it would just
players.
be, huh?
Eastside Catholic still had some great players that went D1. They just wouldn't be able to hang with just all the talent. And
2 or 3 isn't going to get it done. You know, I mean, it would.
They would just take them out of the game. I would imagine.
Well, it would just be. I think a decent college team would score almost as fast against a high school team as they would if 11 traffic cones were sitting out there. It's just how fast can we score, you know? And so yeah, I think I'm solid in my conviction that the jump is bigger from high school to college.
Yeah, that does totally make sense. And speaking of going from now into the NFL, me and Blake wanted to know, like, when you guys were prepared, how does it really, I mean, we can only assume, but like, what is it like preparing for NFL, just, when you play a normal game on Sunday versus when you like have a short week and, you have a quick turnaround, say you're playing Sunday and then all of a sudden, you're on the Thursday night game, or you play Monday and you're still even then, like you have the longer week too. So what kind of is the difference there?
Yeah. So a normal, we'll just talk about normal in the NFL. So normally you play on a Sunday and then you get the evening off. Of course, if you're on the road, you're flying back, but and then if you're at home, there's an opportunity after the game, and you frequently see players will go out on Sunday night because that's their Friday night. Yeah. Does that make sense? That's and so then on Monday, you generally come in, and that's the film study day where you come in, you watch the tape from the day before, and you get a lift. You get a lift. You have to. Everybody lifts on Monday, and maybe a little bit of cardio, but that's generally you kind of do that on your own. That's that's just not a team construct. Then Tuesday you have your day off. So Wednesday is like the beginning of the work week. And Wednesday, you come in the morning at 7 a.m. You've got, for a quarterback, you have quarterback meetings. You're watching tape. Then you have maybe an offensive meeting. You have install any new plays for the week. So and you're watching a lot of tape of your opponent. Let's say you're playing the 49ers on Sunday. Now you're watching whoever the 49ers played most recently, and a lot of your meeting time is wrapped up in that. Then you'll generally have a practice after lunch, call it like a 2 p.m. practice. Of course, you got to get your ankles taped and all that stuff. So you have a practice, and that'll be Wednesday and Thursday are long practices. Those are 2 hours. Now, some teams have kind of backed off and maybe an hour and 45 minutes, but call it a 2 hour practice or close to it. Wednesdays are generally neutral downs, first and second down. Then Thursday you have third down, and Friday is situational. You've got now Friday you take the pads off. It's generally a shorter practice, about an hour and a half, maybe 75 minutes, and no pads, and you go on through short yardage, goal line, and red zone. You're trying not to run as much, so that's why you're doing the red zone, so receivers aren't running all the way down the field. And all the while through this, you're doing a lot. It's primarily you're studying tape of your opponent. We're watching a lot of 49er as a offensive player. We're looking at the 49er defense and all the teams they've played. And then Saturday you have a walkthrough for about 45 minutes in the morning just to get one last kind of final alerts. And then Saturday, most teams, even at home, you'll stay in a hotel and have your final meeting. Everybody has a bed check at 11, and then go beat the 49ers on Sunday.
There you go.
As we like to see that as our Seahawks fans ourselves.
Yeah.
Just 2 quick questions about preparing. So do they tackle during the week, or Do they try not to injure each other in practice?
Yeah, nobody tackles during the regular season.
That's what I would figure because they're NFL players at that point. They know how to tackle.
The most you'll see the tempo is what's called thud tempo, where the linemen will block, and they'll generally block the way they would in the game. Now they're not going to have the fervor and the spirit, but from a technique standpoint, they're blocking as they would in the game. You're not going to cut anybody in practice, though, right? You're not going to cut your teammates. Cut means block below the waist, right? So that's in certain circumstances that's legal on Sunday, but you don't do that to your teammates during the week. But there's nobody's tackling to the ground. You'll do that very rarely in training camp. Never during the regular season do you tackle to the ground. And Evan, I had kind of outlined the week for a regular week. You had asked about Thursday.
Yeah.
The quick version: if you're playing on Thursday, you play on Sunday, and you go on Thursday. You probably don't even put on pads. From my memory, we just. You're just in jerseys the whole week, and it's kind of more like long walkthroughs. So nobody's really running. You're getting the mental work. Mm-hmm. So you try and get as much the same mental work condensed into a shorter time frame, but you can never get the same physical work condensed into a short time frame.
Totally.
So coaches will say, hey, we're not going to have the physical regularity that in terms of how we're running and what have you. We're going to back off on that. But one thing to note, if the Seahawks, let's say the Seahawks, they play the 49ers on a Thursday night. We've been talking about the 49ers. Okay. So, the 49ers, let's say the 49ers play the Vikings on Sunday. The Seahawks play the Lions on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now the Seahawks play the 49ers on Thursday. Both the Seahawks and the 49ers have an equal detriment, right? They're both whatever impediment that short schedule has been, they share it. Okay. Right? Both teams when they play on Thursday night. But now let's say the next week after that game, the Seahawks play the Rams. The Seahawks get 10 days before they play the Rams.
True, yeah.
But the Rams, let's say they play the Packers on the Sunday. 3 days after the Seahawks play the 49ers on Thursday, the Rams play the Packers on Sunday. The Rams have 7 days to prepare for the Seahawks the next week. The Seahawks have 10 days. So playing on Thursday night, actually as a general rule, now you could make exceptions, in bye weeks and this and that. But as a general rule, if you're following the calendar that I'm laying out, as a general rule, teams actually benefit from playing on Thursday night because they have an equal, as I said, impediment or restriction or what have you, disadvantage. They have an equal disadvantage on the Thursday, but then they turn around the following game 10 days later and they actually have an advantage, a likely advantage over their opponent the next week.
That does make sense. I see
I never even thought of that back end of that. So that does make a lot of sense. An extra 3 days is a lot.
Yeah, after you play that Thursday night game. So you got to suck it up on Thursday. Well, guess what? If you're coaching and say, hey, guys, this is not ideal, but this is professional football. We're expected, and there's going to be no excuses. And the guys that you're lining up against, they've got the same disadvantage too. Their bodies are used to a 7-day rest, and they're having to play on a 4-day rest. So you're not at a disadvantage to your opponent. Okay.
And I will say for injuries as well, I'm assuming that 10 days feels a lot better because you got a lot of time. As I saw in 90, what year was it? 92. I saw you separated your shoulder 3 times in one season. Is that correct?
Yeah. It was my non-throwing shoulder, but that does impact you eventually. I separated in the opener's 7th play of the season.
Oh God.
And and then it was a grade 2. So grade 1 is the most mild, grade 3 is the worst. So, but it was a grade 2, and then came back couple 2 weeks later against the 49ers.
Look at that.
And it became a grade 3, and then I remember that Bert Zarens, the Patriots team doctor, he's quoted in the Boston Globe. He says, "Well, it's a grade 3; it can't get worse." And so I was trying to play with it again. It was non-throwing shoulder, and then we played against the Browns. And if you look at the X-ray after, there was a grade 3, and the collarbone was here, and that's where I'm reading the paper that well, it can't get worse. And then after the Browns game, it's like, here you can take a ruler and you can measure. So wait a minute, what's this? A grade 4? Because the grade 3 that couldn't get worse is now worse.
Yeah.
I can prove it on the X-ray.
I know about the Millens is they play through damn injuries.
Yeah, it was all popping up. And,
God.
Hopefully Michelle doesn't watch this. I know Clay played through so many injuries.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's somebody told me that the injury rate is 100%. And in football, now, if you're a stickler for math, you'd say, well, not everybody gets injured, but if there's one person who, by all stars align, he never gets injured, there's 10 other guys who got injured much more than one time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So if you had 1,000 football players, there's a lot more than 1,000 injuries. Does that make sense?
So, totally.
So I think it's more than 100. I think the injury rate is well over 100%.
And that's why I asked earlier if they tackle in practice, because you see a lot of injuries in practice, which you don't think there would be. Mm-hmm. But I guess a lot of those are non-contact, ACL, Achilles, things like that.
Yeah, and I think even if you go in the games, I don't know this to be true, but I think I've heard this anecdotally. When I see injuries, if you just ask me over the last 25 years, are the most serious injuries, are they contact or non-contact? I think there are more serious non-contact injuries. People tear ACLs. You mentioned the Achilles. Those are very common injuries, and they usually happen non-contact.
I'm pretty sure the Aaron Rodgers one, Achilles, I'm pretty sure that was non-contact on the first or second play of the year.
4th play of the year, and I don't think that falls under the category of non-contact because he was barely getting touched, but he was trying to elude pressure to his left, and he was kind of stretched out near the ground. You might be right. I feel like there might have been a little contact, but not like a major tackle. Yeah, I think we can agree on this, Blake. It wasn't like there was a blow to his ankle that clearly caused it was his response to, like you said, maybe a hit to his shoulder, and he got in an awkward position where his calf was at a acute angle, and then he popped it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens.
That kind of leads us into our next question here. A lot of kids trying to model their game after Mahomes, Rodgers, Josh Allen, Lamar. Was there a certain quarterback you modeled your game after when you were a kid?
Well, the names is going to surprise you, but when I was in high school, the Husky quarterback was a guy named Tom Flick.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a local guy out of Interlake High School. And I just thought he was the smoothest cat. There was just something about his the way he dropped and his feet, and there was an elegance to his game, and it was so smooth how the ball came out. Like, think of, I assume you guys have watched a little golf. Maybe you're a golf fan, but some guys have these beautiful swings. Fred Couples locally, he's admired universally to have this beautiful fluid golf swing. Well, that's how Tom Flick was, the former Husky quarterback who took the Huskies to the Rose Bowl against Michigan. And I obviously I was impressionable because of my age and he being a local guy, but I probably looked up to him. I wore number 12 because of him. At the professional level, there was a period I really was admiring Joe Namath and Joe Namath's style and how he threw a football but there was a lot of guys. Joe Montana. Mm-hmm. I wasn't like Montana in terms of my style, but I really loved his game, and he was the GOAT before Tom Brady.
Oh, totally.
So if you're a younger guy, go down a rabbit hole with a YouTube and just go Joe Montana highlights and see
I honestly haven't watched any of him, even though he was one of the best quarterbacks of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's he's a top 3. Mahomes probably passed him now, but he's a top 3 quarterback all time, and he was the GOAT before the GOAT.
Yeah.
The
original GOAT.
I beg your pardon?
The original GOAT.
OG, yeah, he was the OG GOAT for sure. So, but do yourself a favor if you're a football fan and you're young. YouTube is available to you. Just type in Joe Montana highlights and just kind of watch. Again, elegance that he had. There was a fluidity, a smoothness that far exceeded mine. I might add. I should add, but he was a clutch performer and a hell of an athlete. He got, if you look in the almanac, in 1974, the NCAA basketball champions were the North Carolina State. What's their? I should know their name.
Wolfpack.
Wolfpack. All right. So NC State won the title that year. They had David Thompson, the Skywalker. Anyways, that year, Joe Montana was offered a basketball scholarship to North Carolina State.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In a year that the NC State had won the title. So that gives you an idea of the type of athleticism that Montana had. Mm-hmm. So he brought that footwork and that grace to the quarterback position and played it like a point guard because he had great people around him. But Montana spent a long time as my favorite quarterback, and then because of my relationship with my kids and how much they love Tom Brady, Tom Brady surpassed that. But that really wasn't the question. You asked me when I was a kid, who did I model my game after, and those are a couple of guys.
Yeah.
Now I have to ask, did they wear number 12 because you wore number 12 when you were younger? I know you wore 7 in your career, or did they wear it because of Brady? I know Clay was in love with Mr. Brady.
I think it conveniently worked out.
There you go.
I think I'd be fearful to ask that question because I'd be hoping it was Dad, but in reality, it's probably Tom Brady. Yeah, the problem is the internet exists, and so at some point my kids got to an age and they realized, I thought Dad was my hero, but now that I see his career, like I got to drop this dude. So I got to imagine that it's a lot more Tom Brady than Dad.
Hey, you had a great career at UW and in the NFL. They can't hate on that.
Well, I'm blessed. There was many had better careers. Some had worse careers, but I think that trying to line that up, it doesn't lead to anything healthy unless you're Tom Brady, because then you can surmise, well, hey, I'm the GOAT. But I just take the blessings that I had, and I met my wife when I played for the Broncos. So if it wasn't for my NFL career, I wouldn't have the family that I have. My sons, Kale and Clay, wouldn't exist, obviously. And presumably I'd be married to somebody else, but my life would certainly look a lot different without the NFL. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah. Evan, you want to hop into this next topic here, free agency, a little bit?
Yeah, moving now from we kind of want to talk like more like recent news that has been going on in the NFL too. Like, so obviously the Giants first up here for us. We saw them just sign Russell Wilson, but they also signed Jameis Winston. Both were actually starting last year because obviously Deshaun Watson has gone through quite the career there in Cleveland. I mean, Jameis Winston, he started a lot of games last year for them as well. So now the Giants signed 2 starting quarterbacks to kind of duke it out in camp, but we all thought they were going to draft, maybe Shedeur Sanders. I'm pretty sure he thought that as well, but we wanted to kind of hear your take on who do you see now after signing both those quarterbacks, the Giants taking in the first round.
Well, I don't know what they prioritize or how they rank Shedeur Sanders. I think Shedeur Sanders, there's a lot of reasons to be concerned about him.
Mm-hmm.
I have watched his sack tape, which features exactly 40 sacks, and more than half of them, I think, were avoidable.
Oh.
He had 313 yards of yards lost in sacks, which was number 1 in all of college football. So not only was he taking sacks, he was losing a lot of ground in so doing. And I think there's leadership questions about him throwing his linemen under the bus.
Yeah.
And, just publicly just stating without any conscience that his offensive line was poor. I would be concerned about if he's a bust. Now, this doesn't speak to the probability,
mm-hmm.
but the magnitude, if he is a bust, he's going to potentially, life is going to be hell for the whichever team drafts him, because Deion Sanders is not going away.
Yeah.
And I think that Deion Sanders has a chance to, if he doesn't like how his career is developing for his son, I got a feeling Deion could get very vocal about that.
Mm-hmm.
And
for sure.
And so you just have to think, okay, how is Sanders going to handle adversity? He himself, the whole package with his dad. So I have concerns about that. Another concern I have for Shedeur Sanders is his discipline with his footwork and his mechanics is not tight. He kind of drifts back, doesn't get set, and the way he drifts, and there's kind of a nonchalance to his game.
Oh yeah.
that he's not ready to throw. And so the footwork that he chooses to employ is going to lead him to have trouble being anticipatory. And we had talked earlier about high school, college, or college pro. One big difference, of course, the faster the game gets, what makes quarterbacking difficult, in my opinion, it's not the throwing part, it's the anticipating. You got to see the movie before it happens.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, consider this, guys. In the United States of America, from ages 22 to 37, men 22 to 37. Now that's the approximate age of NFL players, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now there's some that are younger than 22, and there's some that are older than 37. But let's just go with that, 22 to 37. There's 38 million American men. Okay, rounding to the nearest, and the NFL only needs 32 of them to be quality NFL quarterbacks. for the league to really thrive, because then everybody feels like they have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're a Cleveland Brown fan right now, how are you feeling about the 2025 season? Now, maybe you say, well, they're going to draft somebody, but there's some teams where you look and you go, I just don't know. Well, if you're the Saints, I mean, do you really feel like you have the guy? Jacksonville, you thought you had the guy, but do you have the guy? And so getting back to my comment, there's 38 million quarterbacks, 38 million American men. That's greater than 1 in a million that the NFL needs. And yet there's, out of 38 million men, there's probably only about 10 or 15 quarterbacks who play well.
Yeah.
Right?
It really is crazy.
Okay, think about that. And this is the United States. Anybody who can throw a football, you know it, because it's the United States. Now, you might not know if you can play cricket because it's the United States. It's not India. Like maybe Mike Trout is the greatest cricket player that ever walked planet Earth, but he never played cricket, right? But if you're in the United States, you know if you can throw a football. Now you could say, well, there's a certain stature, you have to have a certain size. Okay, all right. So not all 38 million men are qualified just from a size standpoint. But you get my point. There's a lot of potential quarterbacks, and there's only about a dozen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the throwing part. There's a couple hundred guys out of those 38 million. There's at least 200 guys that can throw the ball well enough to be an NFL quarterback. Okay. Now, I'm not saying there's 20 million out of 38 million. Mm-hmm. I'm saying there's 200 out of 38 million that can throw the ball well enough. So what's the difference? We got more guys who can throw well enough. The problem, the difficulty with playing quarterback, in my opinion, is you're processing this information where the defenders are, and you have to see the movie before it plays. You have to anticipate where guys are going to be, and that is really difficult. If it was just a case of, I see a guy, and let's say you had like some gun that was really accurate, and the ball could go, 120 miles an hour, and receivers had these high-tech mitts that they could catch it, like boom. Well, then as a quarterback, you just stand back and go, oh, he's open, boom. You shoot that ball, and then it would just go right in that window, right?
Yep.
But that's not the physics. A really fast football is going 62 miles an hour. Think of that from a baseball pitcher's standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
That's not even a changeup. That's a knuckleball, right? So that ball it's not going very fast. It's only going 62 miles an hour. That means that defenders can converge on that. And so you got to see the windows, throw it before the defenders can converge. And that processing part of it is what makes it difficult. And so getting back to Shedeur Sanders, if he's not ready to throw it early, you throw it late in the NFL,
it's going the other way for 6.
TROUBLE.
Yep.
You are asking for trouble. And,
as a non-football knower myself, I was concerned with Shedeur because he kind of just seems like he just goes with the flow and just has all day. Well, he doesn't have all day, but he'll run back like he has all day. And then Travis Hunter or Jimmy Horn or someone like that will just be wide open. But that's not the case in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a lot more challenging. The NFL, you better be ready to throw, and you better have the horsepower with your arm to get in there on a lot of throws. Not all, but there's a handful of throws per Sunday that you got to put some juice on it. And I I think Shedeur is just so in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
I think his arm talent, his velocity is okay. Well, if your velocity is just okay, that puts a greater burden on the other aspects of your game, the anticipatory aspects of your game. So you got to be more of an anticipator. And I don't see a ton of anticipatory throws on his tape.
Yeah, for sure. I'll ask this as a kind of a follow-up to that. We're big Cam Ward fans as he went to Washington State, which is where me and Evan both went. He was actually in a few of my classes. Do you think he's the best quarterback in the draft, or who do you have as your best quarterback?
Yeah, I think he's the best. I think he's the best quarterback in the draft. I saw him play live in the opener, Miami against Florida, and he carved up Florida. And now some of the aspects about his technique that I said about Shedeur Sanders, you also say about Cam Ward. There's a certain lack of polish to his footwork, but Cam Ward, he just has he has a knack for generating big plays down the field. I think he sees his lens when he's looking down the field. He sees openings deep down, and in that sense, it kind of reminds me of Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, when he was, of course, they're very different as an athlete, but Peyton Manning had an ability to see deep down the field and see opportunities for big completions. And I think Cam Ward, he senses those opportunities, but he's got the arm to get there. If he happens to be late, he can still drive the ball, unlike Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah.
He's got a big play mentality. I think there's an elusiveness. He's more elusive in the pocket. So I think that he's more dangerous as a play, extending plays than Shedeur Sanders. So I think he's I think he's an interesting prospect. There's a lot of juice to his game.
I loved watching him play because he'd be like 30 yards behind the line. I'm like, if he gets sacked, I'm going to be pissed. And then he just somehow gets away, hits someone for like 40 yards. And I'm like, how is he looking down the field when he's trying to get away from like 3 grown men running full speed at him?
Yeah. No. And when you watch that tape, of course, you love it, like you said. But then you have to say, okay, how's that going to play out in the NFL?
Yeah, can't be doing that.
In that sense, that was a big question about Caleb Williams, because he had a remarkable playmaking ability behind the line of scrimmage, and I think Cam Ward is a touch twitchier than Caleb Williams. And I think Caleb Williams was a touch stronger. But I put Caleb Williams and Cam Ward in very similar categories in the pocket. They want to make big plays. They have a knack for making big plays. They're elusive enough to extend plays. Again, Cam Ward a little twitchier, Caleb Williams a little stronger, running through arm tackles and getting out of arm tackles. So those are good comps in my opinion. I think Shedeur Sanders is somewhat comparable to Cam, but he's just not as good a version.
Yeah. That kind of leads us into our next question. This one's actually from my cousins in Chicago. They're big Bears fans.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, as well as how the quarterback game has changed with much more mobility in a lot of the teams?
Well, Jaden Daniels had a season that I don't think anybody expected to have. certainly the Commanders were hoping to get that kind of season out of him. I think he's been one of the more interesting studies that we've seen in the past several years, because I can recall watching a number of games with Daniels at Arizona State. And when he transferred to LSU, me not knowing the depth chart, I'm thinking, are you sure you're even going to start at LSU? Like that's what I thought of him at Arizona State. I wasn't in my own mind convinced he would start. I think it was likely that he would be the starter, but I remember thinking that's not a slam dunk he's going to be the starter. Right? He could go there and have a bad training camp and just, be the number 2. That could have happened. At least in my mind, that was a possibility. And then he had a really good year his first year at LSU, then the Heisman year. Now he was thrown to 2 number 1 draft picks.
Yeah, totally.
And his Heisman year, and that's rare, right? And Penix was thrown to Rome Odunze, and McMillan and Polk, but those weren't 2 number 1s. That was 1 number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and yet, so Daniels had some great targets, and then there was a lot of questions. We haven't seen a guy that skinny play maybe ever. Tell me a legit quarterback, a quality quarterback, who's as skinny as Jaden Daniels. I don't ever recall.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell.
I was going to say you got much more knowledge of the game than I do, and I can't.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched it for 50 years plus. I don't remember seeing a guy that skinny. So there was this thought, okay, can he be durable? Can he take the hits? Well, they protect quarterbacks a lot more now. And when you're twitchy, people don't really get a good shot at you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know how many really truly hard hits he take. Now, eventually you're gonna take some hard hits because you can't get away from it. But he was able to stay healthy and just a remarkable, beautiful passing motion, and found a way to make big plays. His elusiveness really impacted the game. He's probably the second most elusive runner in all of the NFL, next to Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
Josh Allen is in a unique category because he's so strong, but obviously not as fast. But Jaden Daniels is probably in the top 3 most dangerous runners at the quarterback position that we have in the NFL. And then Caleb Williams, I think it's tough because that offensive line really struggled, and they had struggled with Justin Fields before. Your Bears fans, your cousins that are Bears fans, they know that offensive line. It's been like the Seahawks offensive line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was Justin Fields or whether it was Caleb Williams. And so I think the Bears finally took real significant measures this offseason in all their acquisitions, and Joe Tooney and the like, to fortify that protection for Caleb Williams, because I think they finally realized, hey, they have really good targets in Chicago.
Is Keenan Allen still there?
Yeah, I don't know the key in it. I think he might have moved on, but you still have Rome Odunze and you have DJ Williams.
Yeah.
Right. So
I don't think Keenan Allen re-signed yet, so I don't know if he will re-sign.
I think he might have signed somewhere. But they're doing just fine in the target stamp. They just needed to improve their offensive line. So if anybody says they saw Jaden Daniels doing what he did as a rookie, I'll call him a liar right to their face. I don't believe it. Yeah.
That kind of leads us into the next question once again. This was asked quite a bit just over social media. I was looking through. Why do so many first-round quarterbacks struggle when they come into the NFL?
Well, we kind of touched on it. I think my short answer would be the NFL. You've got, it's obviously the highest level of football in the world. So you got world-class athletes out there on defense. And the way I think there's one of four ways that defenses try to make it miserable for you. Okay. And I kind of break them into two categories. How they defend you on, okay, I'm gonna go first person on this, just so I'm not confused. If I'm a quarterback, you can try and defend me either on my side of the line of scrimmage or on your side of the line of scrimmage. Everything that you try and do to defend me on my side of the line of scrimmage has to do with the pass rush.
Mm-hmm.
And I break that into two categories. What are you doing to try and confuse us? Bringing simulated blitz. You bring somebody off this edge that I didn't expect you to bring, but you drop somebody else off into coverage. Okay, so now you're defend. When you do that, you're trying to defend me in my mind to confuse me, to make me make a mistake or to slow my process down. Okay. So you're trying to confuse me and our linemen, that we together, we comprise the pass protection element, and throw in a running back who's got to have his part. Okay. Or so you can either try and confuse us, some level of confusing, or you can just have four great players, you rush, and your guys are just better than my guys.
Yeah.
Okay. So you rush your four, I got five linemen, and somewhere somebody's going to win a battle and get on me and sack me. Okay. So it's either so my sideline of scrimmage is either physical or mental, or defend me on your sideline of scrimmage, which is coverage. And then I break those down into the same two components. You're either going to try and confuse me with disguised coverages. Okay, you're going to start with two high safeties, bring a safety down. Now I thought I was thinking it was going to stay with two safeties, but now the coverage is rotating. So you're either going to try and confuse me in coverage, or you're just going to you're just physically going to win in your coverage. Your guys are better athletes. Like when Ohio State plays Northwestern, Ohio State, they can just line up and play man to man, and they say, look, our corners are better than your receivers. Our corners run a 4-3-5. Your receivers run a 4-7-5. We're just going to be physically better. We're not going to try and confuse you. We're just better.
Yeah.
And whether we play man or whether we play zone, we can just cover you better. You might get a few completions, but we're just better. You're not going to get many completions. Like, so those are the four ways that you can defend a quarterback. And I think all of them are elevated. And again, the part that makes it difficult is a quarterback has to see it before it happens. You can't react. There's a saying, if I'm in the pocket and I see, DK Metcalf break in to a window and I see that he's open, if I then throw it, that's too late.
Yeah.
And the saying, to condense that thought, is if he's open, he's covered. If I see him open, he's covered. I can't wait till I see him open, because then by the time I throw it, he will be covered. So what do I have to do? I have to throw it before he's open. Throw it, then the ball arrives when he gets to that spot where he's open. I have to anticipate that window. He will be open for whether it's a window in space on the field or whether it's a window in time. That window will be brief, and it's more brief in the NFL. But I can't, that window of both time and space that he is open, I can't wait till he gets into that window to throw it. I have to anticipate, I have to throw before he gets into that window, either of time or space. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I say in time? you can just stopwatch when you pull the ball. So we understand the window in time, and then the window in space is that I can't throw it too far, too early before he gets into this area. But I can't throw it too late, because if I throw it too late, then defenders are going to converge to the ball. There's a window in time and space, right?
For sure.
That has to be anticipated.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people don't understand that in the NFL, as you said, you don't have the time to see that they're open. You got to throw before that. And like every once in a while, it'll get picked off because you don't know if he's going to be open when he gets there.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of people will crap on quarterbacks. It's like, well, you got to anticipate if he's going to be open.
Yeah. Well, think of it like this. This is going to be a weird analogy, but you're going to imagine. Okay. Let's take football to a baseball field. Okay. So you're standing in the batter's box. Okay. And you're a quarterback. You're standing in the batter's box. You're going to have a teammate run down the third base line. He's going to hit third base, and he's going to round into the hole between third base and shortstop. Okay? So now you've got to throw, that you have to hit. The only chance you have for the completion is between the third baseman and the shortstop. But they're going to react to the ball when you throw it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So as you're standing there, around home plate in the batter's box, and your receiver runs down the third base line, if you wait for him to clear the third baseman and get into the window, do you think you have a chance?
No.
No shot.
No. You're going to have to throw it like basically when he's standing on third base. You're not throwing to him at third base. You're throwing to him as he's right into that window between the third baseman and the shortstop. And you've got to see now. Does that make sense? So you got to anticipate throwing into that window, and that's why I talk about window in space. That's the window in space. Yeah. But here's the thing: sometimes the third baseman is close to the bag, and the shortstop is kind of close to second base. So there's this nice big window, and then that's relatively easy. But what if the third baseman is like off the bag more? Okay, he's not holding the third base line. What if the shortstop is like pulled towards third base? Now it gets gray area. Like now it's a smaller window. And if you're going to smoke that in there, you better anticipate it, have great anticipation, and you better have a live arm, and you better drive that freaking thing into that window, right?
That's a good analogy. I was wondering where you're going with it, but now it makes total sense.
Does that make sense? So it's not like the third baseman and the shortstop are always in the same position. And and I'm just using in this analogy, I'm just using two defenders, the third baseman and the shortstop.
Yeah.
Most defenses have 7 guys. Some defenses have 8 guys. Some only have 6. But in a zone defense, which most of the NFL is, there's more zone played than man. Those windows, they're all over the place. They're just like in baseball outfield. There's the window between the shortstop and the second baseman. There's a window between the second base and the first man, and they're all the distances those guys are from one another, that varies. It's like they say no 2 snowflakes are the same, right? Ever heard that? Have you ever heard that expression?
No, I've heard it.
Well, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Come on, you guys from Wazoo, you get snowflakes. No 2 snowflakes are the same.
Right?
Snowflakes falling, I think.
If you put them under a magnifying glass, the crystals are going to be just a little different, right? So, so that's kind of, you asked me why it's hard to play quarterback in the NFL, it's because of that. And then numbers bear it out. We got 38 million American men in the age that are potential NFL quarterbacks. We only got 12, maybe 15. How charitable do you want to be? We only got 12 or 15 that do it well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and is the sport popular? Yeah.
Yes.
It's the most popular sport by a mile in the country. So we know how difficult it is. We got 38 million who would be NFL quarterbacks if they were given this, if they had the skill. Only got 12 guys that can do it.
Yep.
That's crazy to think about.
I mean, right? Does it make sense?
It does.
100%.
Yeah. It's every kid's dream too. It's like, oh, I could be a quarterback. It's like,
maybe in
can't.
the I-9
think
football
again.
league.
Evan, have you ever thrown a football at a park?
I have. I've tried.
Have you ascertained whether or not you're good at throwing a football?
Huh?
You've learned how good you are at throwing a football, yes?
Yeah.
Blake, you ever thrown a football in your life?
I have.
Have you ascertained relative to other dudes? Oh, there you got right there. Have you been figured out how good you are relative to everybody else throwing a football?
Yeah. I saw Clay throw it. That's all I need to see.
Right? You want to know why? Because you grew up in America.
Yeah.
So you know if you can throw a football. And that's how the numbers work out. So,
this is kind of a funny question. I wasn't going to ask it, but now I have to. If you put a normal guy who's around like 6'2" into the Oregon offense at quarterback, could they win a game against like a very bad D1 school like Portland State?
I think yes, potentially, because this is how I would answer that. The easiest pass to throw, is like a screen pass, where maybe a running back is just kind of 4 or 5 yards away.
Yeah,
you just kind of, there's also what are called tunnel screens, where the receiver is behind the line and you can just kind of throw it 5 or 6 yards away. So you could take an average frat guy at Wazoo, and if he can throw the ball 10 yards, Oregon is probably dominant enough in their offensive line that they could run it almost every play.
You just made my day, Hugh. You don't even know.
And then if this frat guy were to throw like 5 to 7 times in the game and everything was behind the line of scrimmage, just screen passes either to the running back or a wide receiver, an occasional screen, even maybe an RPO, which is you call a run, but
it's pass option.
Yeah, and then you teach him, hey, if this what we call the conflict defender, if he crashes in, don't hand the ball to the running back, just throw it to the slot receiver behind the line of scrimmage. He'll be like 8 yards away. Just throw it to him. So I think the average frat guy can throw a football accurately 10 yards and in.
Nice.
And so if you take those 10 yards and you say not 10 yards down the field, because there's the defenders who can jump the ball. But if you go 10 yards laterally and all your passes are attempted behind the line of scrimmage, variations of screens, I think you could probably run the ball again, Oregon against Portland State, and complete a half a dozen screen passes. And I think that Oregon could beat Portland State.
I got to give you a quick backstory to that. So I was saying Oregon is so dominant that they would be able to beat Portland State if they had like someone who could barely throw at quarterback. I wasn't saying I was good, but I was arguing with my brother. I'm like, I can throw it 50 yards pretty accurately, but that's not what I would do. I would just hand it off, throw screens, and they are just way more athletic is more what I was saying. They just have the best of the best at Oregon, Ohio State, teams like that.
Yeah. Well, I don't think – now you can throw 50 yards accurately out on the park.
Yeah, but not when people are running at me.
if I'm coaching you and we've got $1 million on the line and you're my quarterback and we're the Oregon Ducks and we've got to beat Portland State. I'm going to install an offense to beat Portland State, but it does not entail you throwing the ball 50 yards down the field.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
We lose that football game.
Okay. So because though I don't want to lose that possession, but I will have you'll throw between 5 and 10 passes in the game. We'll see how you're doing. And I think that somehow through the running game and a minuscule passing game, I think that we'll beat Portland State.
Get it done.
That's great to hear. Maybe we could even make this happen. All right. $1 million. Hugh Millen is our O coordinator.
All the things I've seen in college football, right now, nothing would shock me. So at any event, that'd be fun.
We'll change topics here as we don't got too much time left. But speaking of coaching, what was it like being able to coach both of your kids at the position that you played as well, too?
Well, my short answer, it was wonderful. It was a blessing. Very memorable. It's a joy and a treasure to be able to do that. You guys will understand when you have kids, and I'm grateful for Coach Canoon and the Mount Si staff that they allowed me to come on the staff. I had to prove my worth. It wasn't just charity that they brought me on the staff. They had to feel like I would bring something to the staff that would help not just my sons, but would help the team.
Yeah.
And I think Charlie had that conviction, and hopefully I earned that in his eyes. So that there was that part of it. We'll have memories that, I'll take to my grave and the kids will take to their grave of us being able to work in conjunction. I think there was a challenge because if let's suppose I had never played football at all.
Yeah.
And my kids were the quarterback. And then Coach Canoon said, hey, we've got this guy who lives in the community. He wants to coach. He's a former Husky quarterback. He played in the NFL for over a decade. He's got a Super Bowl ring. He backed up 3 Hall of Famers. He was once the New England Patriots MVP, signed the highest contract in franchise history, 33 years, and had the completion percentage record for the Patriots until Tom Brady broke it, had the completion percentage record for the Broncos before Peyton Manning broke it. And he's coached youth football and won a half a dozen championships in youth football. Now he wants to coach high school football. How do you feel about it? My kids would go, that's awesome. Yeah, bring that guy on the staff. I'll listen to every word he says. I'll say yes, sir, no, sir. I'll never break eye contact. I'll listen to every single word he says. I'll try and get as much. That sounds so cool. Coach Canoon, please bring that guy on the staff. Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's the guy that's the guy, but he's your dad. Okay. And so the kids sometimes they didn't see me, as a former player. They saw me just as a dad. So sometimes it was like they wanted to do it their own way. Yeah. And, so sometimes we would kind of, butt heads a little bit. Not often. I don't want to misrepresent it. I mean, 99% of the time it was a good, respectful relationship. But from time to time, we had some battles that were more father-son battles than they were player battles. Does that make sense?
Totally, yeah.
And I was proud to see those on the practice field as a backup D lineman behind Andrew Edson.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you saw some of that, but
I did.
so does that make sense though? Like,
yeah, for sure.
If I was represented in a different person, then the kids would have, they would have probably viewed me differently. But they saw me as a coach, but it was always through the lens of me being their dad.
Yeah.
And that's just inevitable. I bet that happens wherever. And look, I didn't have a distinguished career in the NFL. My career was unremarkable. I bounced around and what have, but that allowed me to see a lot of different offenses, play with a lot of different players. I played with 93 Pro Bowl players. So I wasn't a great player. I wasn't even necessarily a good player, but I learned a lot from being around great players. If you're backing up John Elway and you're sitting in meetings with him every day and listening to what he says is important and watching how he does things, and same thing with Troy Aikman, Hall of Famers. If all I do is pay attention, I'm going to pick up a little bit about the game. And so I tried to bring that to coaching my kids at that position. And then was very important is coaching the wide receivers, Johnny Barrett and all those guys. I had to make sure that their precision was exacting, so that the pass offense could be so if I'm going to ask my quarterback, my kids, to be precise, I have to demand that the receivers are precise so that they have a chance to have that continuity.
For sure. Did we ever have a Trevor Clem and Johnny Barrett matchup in practice?
Oh yeah. Many times, and those are two of Cale's best friends. And Trevor was a phenomenal defensive back. I think should have been the conference player of the year. I mean, he gave up one completion over 10 yards the whole season.
That's what I remember. He was really good.
He was really good. And of course, Johnny Barrett was first team Wall State. Johnny Barrett's the best receiver that's ever come through Mount Si, and it's not close.
Yeah.
He holds every record by a mile. And so if somebody's going to go beat Johnny Barrett's record, you better dig in, because you're going to be going at it for a while. So those were two great players, and they had some battles, and Johnny won some and Trevor won some.
Yeah, for sure. We'll close it out on this last topic. It's just some quick questions. What's your life like after the league? Like, what's a typical day for you now? I know you were on KJR radio for quite a bit, but now you're moved down to Arizona.
Yeah, well, I started investing in commercial real estate back midway through my NFL career. And, that's something that still pays the bills for me. Mm-hmm. And then the radio stuff is kind of more of an avocation. And it's challenging for me to be on the radio and try and convey certain aspects about the game that help people enjoy it a little more.
Yeah.
If you're a Seahawks game and the Seahawks won, it's Monday morning and the Seahawks just won a really close game last night with a lot of memorable plays. I view it as my job. If you tune in to listen to me on Monday morning, I want to give you a player. I want to take you into the players and the coach's realm and say, okay, this is what was happening on that play. You remember that touchdown. I'm going to tell you kind of the thought process for the quarterback. What's his progression? What's he reading? What's his goal? How is that play supposed to be executed? And all the components. What's the receiver's job? How is the offensive lineman going to protect for that? Those type of things. So that now, if I can impart a little bit of knowledge to you about, hey, what happened on the inside on that play that you remember, you remember that touchdown that Tyler Lockett caught, with a minute to go in the fourth quarter. You remember that touchdown. Now I'm going to describe a few aspects of it that hopefully allow you to appreciate that and have a better understanding of that. So that's a challenge for me. I don't have a screen like the TV guys do.
Yeah.
Where I can, if I could have a screen and I could draw, then that would be, that'd be welcome. And I would really, that would be a great assist. So for me, the challenge is on the radio. Can I describe enough detail that's discernible that allows you to appreciate the play a little bit more? I can't give you all the details like I could if we had a screen and I could sit there and point at, well, this guy, you see what, if I could point at the left guard and say the left guard was supposed to do this and that, and then you could see that, but I don't have that opportunity. I have to keep it in the lane that is decipherable over the radio.
For sure.
And that's
a lot
a
of people are
challenge. It's a challenge for me.
Yeah. Let's see what else we got here. I think we got Evan. Do you have any questions before I give the last question here?
No, I was about to say that it's brewing up down there. I can see it.
So I'm gonna ask one more question before this last one because I forgot to ask it. Just a quick one. Who do you what position do you think the Seahawks are going to draft at 18? I know it depends on who drafts before them, but do you think they'll try and beef up the O-line, or what they're going to do? Well, I know you don't know exactly, but do you have a hint at what they might do?
I'll preface it by saying I'm not very good at predicting who the Seahawks are going to draft. I think there's been, in 26 years of doing the draft, I know I said before they picked Jackson Smith and Jigba, they should take Jackson Smith and Jigba. So I know I've got at least one right, but there might have been maybe one other in the past, but it's not good in terms of my predicting. So I don't know. I can tell you their needs. The interior of their offensive line is their biggest need.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if a guard warrants the 18th pick. Steve Hutchinson, a guard out of the University of Michigan, was taken the 17th pick, and he was in the Hall of Fame, and that's one of the best picks Seattle's ever made. It was a guard. I don't know if there's a player of that caliber, but I know that's their biggest need. Offensively, because DK Metcalf is no longer on the team, I think that they need an X receiver, a large receiver, a split end to play on the outside. Maybe Tet McMillan out of.
I was just going to say maybe Teteroa McMillan.
Yeah, he could be.
He falls that far.
Well, I think he's a little polarized. Some people think he's a top 3 talent in the draft. Some people think he's more like 25 or 30. So it's possible that he'll fall. Tight end, I think, is a position of need for sure, and I don't think Ty Warren out of Penn State is going to be there. But the kid Colston Loveland, Michigan, number 19. I think he'll probably be there, and I think that would be a pretty good value pick. And then you've got the Mike McDonald Michigan thing going on there, plus Clint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator. I think he likes to operate out of 2 tight ends, and so that would be a consideration on the offensive side of the ball. And then defense, I think their biggest need is an edge rusher. So you got Mike McDonald, a defensive head coach. If there's a great edge rusher right there, even though the offense needs more help than the defense, I think that the best picks through the years by John Schneider have been more on the defensive side of the ball. I think that's undisputed. And you got Mike McDonald, the defensive coach. They may be sitting there with a defensive end, and McDonald might be just going, let's get him. And then they draft a defensive end. And I don't think that'd be a bad thing if they, have somebody that they think can be an impactful player.
For sure. we will close it out with this final question. I know Evan's anxious for me to ask this.
I know. I want to hear the answer.
He doesn't know what's coming. I'm going to build anticipation here.
Okay. All right. Drum roll.
Here it is. Here it is. What is the most embarrassing sports moment you've ever had in your career at any level? Oh, he's going to the memory bank here.
Yep, getting the tank here.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, some of those are almost too painful. Embarrassing.
Just know everyone that played at Mount Si will see this video.
Oh, is that right?
The former players will probably see this.
Well, let's see. Doggone it. You're having to pick scabs. I ran the ball. We're down. It was the end of the game. We're losing to the Broncos by 3 points. And at the end of the game, I on a drop back pass, I ran the ball because everything opened up, and I thought I could get to the end zone, and I couldn't. And so instead of us being able to kick the ball and go into overtime, the clock ran out. Now the referees they spotted the ball and we were there, and I could have spiked it, but then the referee moved it over a yard.
Oh, of course.
And so that took like a second.
And then we all tried to shuffle, and then so I couldn't get the ball off, and I still. So look, I was to blame. It was stupid. And it was very embarrassing, to answer your question. Humiliating. Really, really, really stupid. But I still, the part that gnaws at me is we still would have been able to spike the ball and kick it from the 1 yard line if the referee didn't spot it and then respot it. And it's those type of gaffes. I tell you what, maybe other people can let them go. So I'm not going to say all players have a problem letting go, because I'm not in the head of all players. But I'll tell you, I'm in my head, and I can't let those things go. And unfortunately, I have more than just that one. But that was really, really bad football, as I used to say when I was coaching. Bad.
I do remember that.
You remember that?
Good football.
Remember that? Good football, bad football?
Yep. Oh, I remember.
Bad football.
Well, Hugh, we couldn't thank you enough for your time. I mean, this was
thank
amazing.
you so much.
Oh, hey, it's great to be with you guys. I'm always here to help any Wildcats, and I'm looking forward to kind of hearing how things are going for you. But it looks like you guys are off and rolling.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. I mean, sorry to wear our Cougar gear. I know you're a Husky legend, but we had to wear our Cougar gear on this one.
That was like a flex right off the jump, right? Like you were wearing that from the first scene.
Oh,
like
yeah.
You're just trying to go alpha on me, weren't you?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I didn't notice that.
I'm sorry. I was trying to hide the Cougar logo, just keeping the crimson up top.
Guy brings me on, a former dog quarterback, and he cougs me out on his freaking logo.
Oh, yeah. I can't hate it.
Can't get away from you. You guys are like locusts, man. Just freaking everywhere.